Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And we have a wonderful show for you. This whole podcast, we always like to delve into all the different corners of what it means to be natural AF. And you can imagine the whole spectrum of things from health to your identity to psychology to healing and esoteric stuff. And this one is going to dip into a couple ponds. One of them is Hollywood and the cesspool that it is. And but more specifically on how it programs and conditions women to not be natural AF, but to be fake AF.
Yeah, so I love that we had Erin on for this chat because, like me, she's had her own experiences with things like cosmetic surgery and just spending thousands of dollars on cosmetic procedures and products and things like that. And I think so many women can relate to this. And even for men listening, I think a lot of men can see this in women that they know, or maybe, have seen that at some point in their life with the women that they know. And it is a targeted attack on women.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the guests and the bombshells that this episode is going to have for everybody.
Well, just a little teaser because you're about to hear it. Erin is what we call a Hollywood insider. And so the stuff that she talks about, she's seen this firsthand. She knows that this stuff goes on, the way that mind control programming is incorporated into literally every TV show and movie that anyone watches.
Well, all the bigger budget ones, maybe not the low budget stuff.
Well, and maybe not. She said she doesn't work with independent, films. So I won't say all of it, but in the big arena, everything that you watch there's programming
anything
put
that
in.
has big product placement. They're not just there to advertise. They're doing some very sneaky, very destructive, not so good stuff.
And look, we know this stuff goes on. And I think a lot of people listening probably know that this stuff goes on. But even I was kind of shocked at hearing it firsthand from someone that sees what they do and how they operate and how it's just a part of how they make film and TV. And
so chalk that up for another thing that conspiracy theorists were right about this whole time.
That's right.
Absolutely insane that this goes on. And it's now become not even hidden. It's like they think we're just these dumb, mindless people and that they tell us what to think and we just do it. But that's kind of true.
I can definitely say that when I look back at old movies, well, not old movies, but movies that they're old now that I would watch growing up and characters I really identified with or just movies that I loved and watched over and over again. I watch them back now and I'm like, whoa, I can see how a lot of this played out in my life.
Yep.
It's pretty confronting. However, it is very necessary, I feel, to have that awareness. So I think that this is a great episode to listen to for anyone that is really skeptical about this kind of stuff. Like I said, this is coming straight from the horse's mouth. This is stuff that she's seen firsthand. It actually happens.
We're all about conscious living here. We're all about taking full responsibility, and awareness is one of the most critical parts of that. So before we get into this epic episode, this shocking tell-all, this is brought to you by Natural Art Form. And we're on a mission to create products that are simple, pure, powerful, and replace things that you might already use with something that's guaranteed not to poison you. Whether that's a safe, healthy, antioxidant-rich deodorant, a pain relief remedy that actually helps stimulate proper cell production and function, or skin repair that'll help put you back together in case you get melted with a flamethrower, like Wolverine.
And for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your entire order, no matter how many times you order, using the code NaturalAF10 at naturalartform.com. So head to the website. You can check all our products out there, and we ship all over Australia and North America. We also want to say on this episode, because Erin has asked us to just put up all of the links to the Living Free movement. So if you want to help support, she's such a huge part of the Living Free movement team. So for anyone that doesn't know that, when we ever refer to the LFM, we're referring to the Living Free movement. And they're actually running a really awesome promotion right now. If you're not a member and you'd like to join, if you are a member and you've got family or friends that you think would really benefit from the platform, because it is amazing. If you join before March 30, so by the end of this month, you will go into the draw to win 2 tickets to the Living Free Festival and a spot at the dinner with the guest speakers.
Yeah.
So yeah, really awesome prize. The festival was so much fun last year. It's going to be even better this year. So for anyone that's interested in topics on truth, how to live a more free life. There's so much on there. I can't even begin to start with how much is on the platform.
Great value. It's an amazing community. It's all over the world. The festival, however, is here in Australia. It's in New South Wales. If you're in the States and you want to make it over here, do it. It's such a great place. You're going to have such an adventure if you come to wild, wild Australia. There is an interesting connection between my part of the world in America, Wyoming, Colorado, Northern Colorado, and Australia. And just to back that up, we just saw Veda Austin in person in a small little town here in Australia. And then her first stop in America going that way for her book tour is Boulder, Colorado, I saw. And that's like 45 minutes, an hour from my parents' house. It's crazy. There's just this weird energetic linkage between this specific part of Australia and that specific part of America.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised when we traveled to Wyoming that the guy we were talking to at the boot barn, he's like, yeah, I know an Australian, and like she's like, he knew her for quite a while. I think she moved there, or because when what's the biggest rodeo?
Cheyenne Frontier Days.
They get like our Australian cowboys and cowgirls going over there for that event. So it is a weird connection. I never would have thought that like Aussies would have ended up in Wyoming, but
it's the only time of the year that we promise to never throw the Canadians out of America. They're all welcome in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
All right, we'll quit rambling and let you listen to the episode, guys. Let's get into it.
Let's hit it.
Our guest today is Erin Bruhn, business owner, entrepreneur, and scriptwriter for some of Hollywood's biggest production companies and streaming services. Erin is also the wife of our previous guest, Dave Armstrong, and is an integral part of the Living Free movement team. In this episode, Erin joined us in delving deep into Hollywood and industry beauty standards and how in the pursuit of perfection, women are pulled further and further away from their natural evolution, which is to age, evolve, grow, and find their authentic selves. Erin will discuss how the beauty industry is as dangerous as Big Pharma in perpetuating dangerous ideals intended to negatively impact our physical, emotional, and spiritual happiness. Welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So,
such a good episode.
Yeah, we're so excited for this conversation. But before we get into that, we just want to kick it off and really just give you the floor to kind of share your bit of your personal journey and sort of the major life experiences you've had that have led you to where you are today and the work that you do.
Yeah, okay. Well, most people know that I'm Dave's wife, so Dave from the Living Free movement. Mm-hmm. I've been with Dave for 23 years. So all of the things that he has done, diving in Antarctica, his adventure business, running high-performance facilities in Melbourne, to the iteration of Living Free based on, his health journey and everything that's happened with him there. So that's basically been my life as well. So in that role of supporting my husband to do these things and then taking positions within those companies that are best suited to where my skill set is. So primarily it's been like administration, it's been in support roles in that, it's been in HR, it's been in running the businesses and the companies, and letting Dave sort of take those primary roles in doing the things that he does really well in adventure and, entrepreneurship and those sorts of things. But from a side perspective of my interest has always been in script writing and film. So I largely fell into that accidentally. I was working to put my own work forward, and I pitched in LA quite a long time ago, I'd say 13 years ago. And I was successful in selling a script to one of the production companies in LA. They yet to make the film, but they optioned it. So that's sort of how that works. And it kind of leads into other work that I was given based on the strength of that script. And I kind of just fell into a niche industry where when, for whatever reason, a writer can't finish their own work or there's a delay in production, maybe someone dies, maybe someone gets fired, I would come in and I would finish the script so that there wasn't a hold up in production of those films. There wasn't anyone doing what I've been doing, and it's kind of like not even really a job description. And I just kind of work on all different projects. I write from all different points of view from different writers to finish off work that obviously is in production and needs to get finished. And in that, obviously exploring my own themes and ideas of the sort of material that I wanted to see out there. My stuff's more sci-fi, kind of in that dark genre. So you've got to be in a really committed headspace to write the things that I was writing at the time. And sometimes that is in a polar opposite to the work that we're doing with Living Free, and the energy and positivity that is within that community. It's being in a headspace where my writing goes in a sort of dark sci-fi, sometimes horror genre, and then having to pull myself out of that creatively and then work on, obviously you've been in the movement for a long time, massive supporters of what we do, we're supporters of what you do, that positivity, that energy to progress things forward, to find solutions. It doesn't really translate to obviously what I'm writing and what my characters are going through. So there's been a bit of a hiatus on me writing my own stuff for now, because of that giant leap from coming out of positive energy, solutions-based movements and then going into what I do. So, and with 3 kids, it's very hard sometimes to get into that space. But it's a labor of love. There's like unfinished projects just sitting there that I know that I'll get to when I can get into that headspace. But also the more that I'm learning about the industry, the more that I work alongside people in Hollywood and in these industries, the harder and harder it is for me to want to be in it, knowing what I know and knowing what I know now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think first of all, I just want to say, I feel like when you kind of just like fall into jobs or anything in life really, so it's just like, it's kind of like where you're just meant to be. And I think, for you especially, like you've just obviously got this raw talent, like to write a script. Because I mean, how many people, like when that script that got picked up, how many people like also handed in scripts?
Yeah, there's thousands of people, like tens of thousands of people that want to put work through. And then also I've done a lot of stuff where some of the production companies have done almost like a call out to talent to say, we're looking for ideas. Does anyone have ideas? So you submit your synopsis, you submit your first sort of like, I guess your first episode, or if you're like me, you kind of try to give them like 13 episodes, and you can be in a group of people that is almost like 200,000.
Wow.
They'll get that many scripts, and then they'll narrow it down to 20,000, then 10,000. In the last one that I did, I actually came second out of 23,000.
Wow.
I lost to a really good one though. So when that one comes out on a service near you, I'm not actually that upset. It was really good. It was really creative. So I find the trying to be in 2 different worlds very difficult. And like I said, because the industry itself is so tainted, and whether you've got a spiritual belief or not, when I came into that knowledge through the Living Free and through Dave's evolution and through the people like yourself that I've met that have a very strong spiritual connection, and they know themselves very well, it's very, very hard to even want to be part of that. Because you know the things that are happening behind closed doors, you know the things that are going on. And although I love the creative aspect of it, I love film, I think it's a great escapism. But when you start realizing that MK Ultra plays a part in the design of scripts, when you find out that mind control plays a part in how things are delivered, you sort of go, well, I don't know if I want to be part of that. I don't know if I want my creative energy to almost then be corrupted to do damage on the other side. So how much of that are you willing to sell your soul to get your work out there when you know that it's going to be used in a way that wasn't your intention? And so that's the polarizing part for me.
Yeah, just on that, how many, I guess you can't really give a number, but like the MK Ultra side of it, is that something that people are commonly aware of nowadays in the industry, or is it still something that
It's
people
100% understood in the industry. Specifically, the one that I work for, they have a dedicated team of people that work in that area to put subliminal messaging into film.
And do they call it that, or do they have
at round tables where that's been discussed, how to do that?
Oh, wow. I wonder if they have like euphemisms for it where it's like, oh, the special writing team is here.
Yeah. It's done. It has been done forever. Yeah. They're very good at it. They know that they're doing it. And I've always said this to people and it was one very specific film that I had previously known was going to be on the table for a particular streaming service that was basically about COVID. And the film was released in 2020.
Yeah.
So how? If you understand film at all, you know that there is a gestation period for one, obtaining a script, working on a script, getting a director, pre and post-production, filming it, and then being able to release something with the exact theme and the exact idea with those words prior to the event taking place, so that you've almost got, well, how would you know? Either it's just a creative team that, you know, they're just futuristic and they understood that this might happen, and you see 700 zombie films. So you're preconditioned through film and through the subliminal messaging that happens within film to accept that when these things happen, you've seen it before. It's not just about sci-fi. It's not just about, oh, this could happen because a virus could do this and people could start eating people. It's not that. It's more the control of behavior. If you see it enough times in film, in television, in series, people will forget how they're internally meant to respond to that. They'll just respond because somewhere down the line it's been fed to them that they will need to behave this way. And in behaving that way, that's exactly the way that they want you to behave. They want you to go crazy, go to your supermarket, take everything off the shelves, get a gun, hide yourself. You know, you're just preconditioned to believe that that's the sensible reaction to a particular situation because you've seen it 1,000 times. It's been programmed into you that the demise of society will start with A, B, C, D behaviors. And even if you're not necessarily going to do it, you're going to think that everyone else is going to do it. So if you don't run out and get water, if you don't run out and get batteries, if you don't run out and steal a car, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're telling you will happen to those people. So it's almost that you've got pre-programmed fear response in behavior that you wouldn't necessarily do if that had not been relayed to you prior. And I didn't think that was a thing until I started to learn about how they do all of the programming in film. And it's in every film. It's in Disney's, it's in animation, it's in TV series. The most significant part of the subliminal messaging actually happens during the credits of films, which I recently found out, which is something I didn't know. And the reason for that is that that's the majority of people that are watching a film. And they started at 8 o'clock and they're flicking through. And if you're like me and Dave, you can't agree on any particular film. So he wants a rom-com. I'm looking for people to be blown up who are not agreeing on this. It's an hour and a half in before you've found something. And so you're at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock before you've watched it. You're tired by the end of a film. You're half going into that sleep cycle. And we've all done it. Like you're trying to get to the end, but you're falling asleep. The subliminal messaging happens in the credits, would you believe it? At its most powerful, because that's when your subconscious is at its most receptive to what's being done. And you don't think it's there because it's generally music. That's where they hide it.
Interesting. Gee, so it's like in the audio of it as well as maybe visuals and stuff? Or
Well, there definitely is visual, but you would have to be, I guess, really, really aware of it to pick it up. But it happens in a lot of the visual, a lot of the audio.
Wow.
It's very interesting. And it's funny actually, because I noticed even because I remember when you first told us that, I was like, credits, because like initially you just think the black screen and the rolling, but it's interesting because definitely in at least the last, 10, 15 years, they started doing that more often. Like I think of, the Fast and Furious series and those really big blockbusters. They always do at the end credits, these visuals and the cars and then the music and and because I've heard before too about a lot of the production companies at the beginning, there's something to do with the symbolism in the light. A lot of them have like a flashing light that come through or whatever. And they also then do that in the credits when it's so interesting to pick up on these things that you would never think that's how they're programming you.
No, and also when they started to put, say you've got I guess they leave like a cliffhanger and there's potentially room, and we can see it happening in every film. You know that, that's going to lead to a sequel, right? Mm-hmm. They will put something important in the credit, but way past where the credits have been rolling for like quite a significant amount of time. And then you'll wait in the cinema or you'll wait to see it because somebody's picked it up. Somebody's told you it's there. So instead of you turning it off and not being susceptible to that, you're waiting for it. You're watching for it. You're waiting for that little tidbit, that little bit that happens somewhere down past the credits. And they got very clever at that because people weren't watching them. And so now they add all these little extras in to keep you engaged in where they need you to be engaged. The good thing that I can tell you, the solution for this, is that once you know that they do it and once you are not susceptible to programming, when you're awake, like most of us in this movement are, you become less susceptible to it. You can just smell bullshit through everything in your life. You can see it on, on Twitter, what's happening on the news. You're so almost like adverse to it once you start waking up. So you can actually go, I totally know what they're doing in this film. I totally know that that's what they want me to do. And like I said, you notice it in the news, you notice it everywhere, and you just become more resilient to it. So the good thing is, if you can wake up, you can spot it a mile away. And you know that that's what they're trying to do to you in trying to give you this narrative and trying to expose you to this way of thinking. So don't stop watching film because you think that you're going to be targeted. It's more about being able to be discerning about what you're actually viewing and why you're viewing it and why at this time. And it is very purposeful. Everyone thinks film is not purposeful. It is. There are very specific natural disaster event movies, movies about XYZ that they will do at specific times. And if you go back, and I had a researcher that did this, that actually left one of the streaming services that I worked for because he couldn't handle it anymore. He couldn't handle feeling like he was responsible for contributing to this. He actually did a whole research on the films from the last 50 years of when particular movies would come out and when particular events would happen in society, and drew a parallel between the timing that they would show a particular type of film and then that exact thing happening, and therefore the response of society mirroring what they were really exposed to within that film and what the powers that be, I guess, wanted society to do. And the correlations were like major in natural disasters, in just other events, how society would unravel, how things would unfold, all actually took place within a time frame that would actually then occur.
Wow.
It's so interesting. And yeah, like you said, it's one of those things too, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Isaac and I can't watch anything anymore without just, it's so, once you see it, it's so obvious. It's actually not that well hidden, but it's hidden in plain sight. So for people that are totally unaware, they'll never see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. We can't watch anything anymore. There's not one, film or TV series that we watch that we don't pick up on something, because there's so many different agendas that they program into these, film and TV, that it's not just like one thing that you're picking up on, but it's so many different agendas, but they just become so obvious once you know what to look for.
And it's one thing because there's a lot of channels and truther channels and stuff out there that pick apart films and all this stuff. But this is the first I've heard from an actual insider that's seen this stuff and can witness to it and be like, yeah, 100%, this is how they're doing it.
And I'm not even that in. Like, I don't have like a level Q card or anything where I'm finding out massive amounts of information. It's just, I think once you've been in for a while, it's just so standard. I think now they don't even want to hide it. It's not as if it's a secret room that you go in with a weird handshake and a whatever, and you walk in and then you're exposed to it. It just happens within the writing process. And I think that they don't even want to hide it anymore. It's this is what we do because it's advertising.
Right.
We want people to buy product. We do product placement. Product placement is in every film. Everyone knows that. But it's not that. That's their way of sort of disguising what they're actually doing behind the scenes is a lot more. I want to say demonic, but that's really a hard word, but it is. They want to change the way that your brain works, the way that you feel like you know what to do because you've been told what to do, not what inherently you would do as a human person.
Yeah.
So it is interesting.
Yeah, so intriguing and powerful, but it's more empowering knowing that once you can see it, you can start sort of taking the leash off and getting back to being who you put yourself in the driver's seat and you decide where you want to go.
Like film's great. Yeah. Stories are amazing. Stories make us think. I know sometimes you cry at films. I mean, I don't cry. Dave cries a lot of films. No, he doesn't.
Real tell-all here. I love it.
So yeah, hopefully he cries at everything. But yeah, like they want an emotive response from you. And one is driven obviously by money. So if the film makes money, fantastic. But the majority of films don't.
Right.
So all of that stuff. It did 1.9 billion at the box office. Yeah. Okay, great. Most films, 80%, don't make anything.
That's wild.
They're there for propaganda. It's not for storytelling. It's to control the way that you think about particular events and people.
Yeah.
The creative part has largely nothing to do with it anymore. Independent film might be slightly different. I don't do much work with independent film. But again, I think people come into independent film when there's no money with great ambitions and ideas and they just want their work out. So I'm not going to put them in the same category because largely the money spend and the MK Ultra and everything doesn't apply to low budget. But it applies to everything else. And in that, there's also the critical nature that we view ourselves as needing to be better than or on par with the type of people that are in film, which largely goes into what I'm exploring at the moment, and especially like with women, like these ridiculous standards, these ridiculous idea that someone at 60 can look like a Nicole Kidman, right? Like that you have to aspire to look like this. If you don't look like this, and you don't have this type of body and you don't have this type of life in these films, then you're less than. And you're so bombarded with the imagery because largely they'll say, oh, we want someone to play an ugly chick, but we don't want them to actually be ugly, but they have to be ugly when we say they're ugly in the film. So the audience has to believe that they are because that's the way we want the story to go. But we can't put anyone ugly in the film. We can't put anyone in that's not going to translate. People aren't going to watch it if these people aren't attractive. And so if you're big on film and you watch a lot of film and you download a lot of content, you follow the Kardashians and you do all of these things, your idea of what you should look like and if you don't look like that is so warped. Your sense of self is destroyed by this. You know, I've been in creative meetings where they've had to use AI and CGI to put emotion onto actresses' faces because they don't have it because they've had so much plastic surgery. That's
wow.
They'll deny it, but there's no emotion because of the Botox. So
it makes so much sense.
Creative.
Wow, that's so insane. Yeah, and I think we've definitely seen that in the proliferation of reality TV. Because obviously, like, everyone knows the Kardashians, but it's not just like it's most reality TV shows now. like Jersey Shore, Geordie, not that I've watched Geordie Shore in years, but I know that's still going. And I've seen, because I used to watch it like 10 years ago, and the women from that show now, like unrecognizable, their faces and how much work they've done. And unfortunately, young girls watch these shows, and not just like the look, how they look, but the behavior. The behavior is another thing, like shows like Geordie Shore and Jersey Shore, and they're going out and getting pissed, and like the behavior that gets mimicked, but then also these standards of like what they think they should look like. And I remember maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, my youngest cousin on my mum's side, she was like 16, 17, and she started getting into makeup and stuff. And she like loved Kylie Jenner, and she would always, you know, she'd see her on Instagram, and she started like doing her makeup. And that's when I was like, whoa, this is like, this is kind of scary when like girls are now looking at someone like Kylie Jenner. Cause like when Kylie Jenner was like, 17, she got her boobs done. She started having all this work done. And to go a little bit deeper into that too, it's because of the platform that they're on. Like she, at such a young age, at such an impressionable age, I can only imagine the pressure that she felt to look a certain way because she was on TV and being in, like living her life so publicly. You know, people can be really horrible online, and that's probably, you know, a big part of the reason she had this work done. And she actually came out recently on the show and said that she regrets getting her boobs done at such a young age, and she might have made a different decision had she been a little bit older. Because she had her, you know, because she did that before she had her kids. So at such young ages, I think we're exposed to these really unrealistic ways of what it is that we should look like, and the things that we should do to look like that, because
everyone knows it and no one's stopping it, right? So everyone knows. And when you say they're unrecognizable to themselves, they are, but they all look exactly the same.
And
who also decided that was the aesthetic and that was the standard? Because if you really look at it, it is almost as if the human side is gone. It's very plastic doll-like. It's not a real representation of emotion, of character, of individuality. It is it's a blueprint, and here's the cookie cutter, and this is what it needs to be, and the hair needs to be down to here, and the lips need to be big, and this needs to be small, and this needs to be tight. There's no individuality. So who decided? Well, we know who decided. They've just decided to create almost this embellic sort of vision of what women should aspire to be, and this is what you need to look like, because they know most of us can't reach that, don't want to reach that, don't want to put the investment in to spend all of that, don't want to cut ourselves up to do it, don't want to do it. So we don't want to do it. We've got to stand on our own strength to say, this is who I am, I'm okay with that. Like, what's the alternative for women to not aging? Death? Like, what's better? What do we age or do we not age? Like, who decided that we, one, don't deserve to go through that evolution, but also that in order to remain important or relevant or interesting or society's version of attractive, we actually need to look so far away from our ancestral heritage, from what our mothers looked like, what our grandmothers looked like, what our fathers looked like, to look like almost just clay constructs of something that someone decided somewhere down the line that women need to form that mold. That's the mold you need to be in. If you're not close enough to it, if you don't actually represent it, you're not relevant, not interesting, you're not beautiful. And I have been a petri dish for product and for stuff my whole life. And because I bought into it, because I was like, oh, beauty, you've got to look a certain way. Don't have grey hair. I mean, I dyed my hair blonde for like 3 years to the point of it falling out because I was too worried about going grey, you know, and that shows aging. Like, that's not attractive. Can't do that. So, you know, went down that line. I had a breast reduction when I was 18, which I thought was fantastic for the first 20 years of my life. But the damage of that was I couldn't breastfeed any of my children. So I've made this decision, this aesthetic decision down somewhere in my life down here that had massive repercussions, learning what I've learned about health and connection and what my children deserved of me. And I couldn't do it because of that surgery early on in my life. and I'm shitty at myself for that. I'm shitty that I bought into a cosmetic change that meant that I couldn't have that with my children and I couldn't breastfeed them over something that I believed was wrong with me. And it wasn't wrong. It was just different. Everyone else at that time in the 90s and, early 2000s had no boobs. So I didn't want to have big boobs. So what a stupid aesthetic decision. It wasn't based on any other thing. I didn't have health problems. I didn't have issues where that needed to be something that had to get done. It was purely an aesthetic decision. And I regret it. I regret it massively. Like that it took away my really maternal, my reason for what I should have been able to provide to my kids. And I let them down because of that decision. And that's not the only aesthetic one that I've made. Like I said, dyeing my hair to try to make it blonde so that it wouldn't look grey and, all of these things that we've done. I did Botox 9 years ago, haven't done it since. But, sticking whatever the hell that is, no one really knows the damage that that's going to cause long-term repetitive use and spending the money on doing it. To be approved by who?
Yeah.
Like God's not asking me to do that. My partner wasn't asking me to do that. My sense of self wasn't asking me to do that. To prove what? To become what exactly? And that's what I'm writing about at the moment is who made those decisions? Who made us feel like we have to reach these ridiculous standards and that if we don't reach them, we're less than? And then how far away from our true purpose and our true sense of self and loving ourselves are we supposed to get? And I know why they want us there, because we're in fear, we're easily controlled, we're self-conscious, we're insecure, we're not powerful. If we buy into that, we're spending all of our time worrying about that when we could be investing all of that energy into quite great things as women. Yeah. And in the flip side of it, the worst part of it is it's made us all so competitive and judgmental of other women that we stand in this place where rather than building each other up and accepting those struggles and be complimentary of other women and what we're going through and how powerful we can actually be together, we're too worried and too committed and absorbing all of our time worrying about what the hell we look like.
Wow. Yeah, and I think a big part of it, again, like when you kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it's just another way that takes away from who we really are. Like it's another tactic to keep people distracted. In this case, in this particular topic, we're talking about women. It's to keep women distracted from who they really are as women. Like women, we were just listening to a stream yesterday with Owen Benjamin, and they were talking about how the woman's primary role is to be a mother and everything that the man does is to provide for that so that we can have future generations, so that we can keep humanity going, basically. Like that's the bottom line. And when you're keeping women distracted by, going back to work really early after having kids, by then, because that's a big one you hear too is like, oh, I've just had a baby. Like I need to bounce back. Like I need to get my body back to what it was. And women are really hard on themselves after giving birth. And, I worked in the beauty industry for almost 4 years just before I finally quit my job and went off to do my own thing. So that was the last job I did. And I actually, I worked in the clinics. So it was like a body sculpting company. So it was non-surgical body and face treatments. So for fat reduction and cellulite reduction and all this stuff. And to be honest, after a year or so of working in the clinics, I couldn't do it anymore. It was really sad to see so many women and how critical they would be of their bodies, and also seeing women that literally had body dysmorphia. We had women that we couldn't treat anymore, and we told them we cannot treat you because one, you don't have enough fat. They literally had nothing wrong with their bodies. Yeah. And when they looked in the mirror, they saw something completely different. And in our particular industry, that's out of our scope. We can't tell them that you have body dysmorphia. We can't even recommend that they go and see a psychologist or a therapist that specializes in that field. And it's just really sad. And that's one of the biggest market, I think, in that industry is women are like postpartum after they've given birth. And like literally some of them would come to us like a few weeks after giving birth. We couldn't treat them at that time, but to get ready for when they could, like, and as soon as that time frame was up, postpartum, they were in there to get all their work done. And it's just, and again, it's like to meet, and they often came in, we didn't do like Botox and fillers, but they were often the same type of women that would come in and they'd have their Botox done and their fillers done. And, you know, this topic is really dear to my heart as well because, you know, my experience with getting breast implants and like very similar to what you said, like I made that decision at quite a young age. Like I decided by like, you know, 18 or something that I was like, I'm going to have them done. I didn't get them done until 25, but my mind was like set on that. And same as you, like now I'm at a point, and when I made that decision, I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have kids. That was like so far removed from like where I am now. And now I'm in my early 30s and very much want to start a family and have had to go through the process of removing my breast implants and having another surgery because they were actually making me so unwell. And I won't know if I can breastfeed my children until I have them. And I have to be very prepared for the instance that I won't be able to. And what am I going to do in that case? And I very much can relate to that regret that you felt because I felt the same when I had to come to the decision to then take them out because they were making me so unwell. I had such a deep feeling of regret that I ever got them in the first place. And for the same reasons, because, you know, I didn't like the look of them because compared to other women, and I, you know, in my teens, you know, it was before the days of social media, but I used to cut out, you know, the women in the magazines and stick them up on my wall and think that that was beautiful. And, you know, at that age, you just don't have the wherewithal to know that they're models. Like that's their job. And they literally have that job because they have that body. And that's
it. It's so damaging because everyone says, oh, the industry is so damaging and it's got unrealistic expectations on women and you know, and then we get the other side of it, which is so far past in the other agenda part, this body positivity part, which don't even get me started because it's okay to be comfortable in yourself, but that is not what that agenda is pushing. Right?
Exactly.
So that's another episode, but that's what's going on. Like being comfortable, being you know, accepted, being all of those things is where we kind of want people to be. But we are all fighting this massive battle that we don't really necessarily know where it came from and its intention. And it's only now that people like yourself and like where you start to go, what's the reason behind it? Like, yes, it's happening and we can all stand up and we can scream and cry and yell and carry on at the fact that, oh, it's setting unrealistic standards for our daughters and it's really damaging and it's damaging for men and it's massively damaging for men as well in the sense that we're all angry that these young boys have this idea of what they want their girlfriends to look like and how they want them to behave in bed because of the porn that they're watching and those sorts of things. And we're angry at them because they're not discerning enough at 17 to not be body critiquing women. That's all they're exposed to. Like, it's not their fault. It's honestly not their fault. Who is exposing them to anything different where they can make any type of decision? Like that's the only imagery and the only sort of ideal that they have that they can aspire to. Like if I've got this hot girlfriend and she looks like this and she's got big lips and she's got breast implants, that's going to validate me. I'm going to be seen as X. I'm going to have more friends. I'm going to have a hot girlfriend. You know, it's not their fault. We're all angry that people can't see past it. And yet we as older women, like I'm 45, I can't see past it sometimes. I can't see the forest for the trees. I've got to pull back myself sometimes. And I had issues with how I looked. I wanted a nose job. I don't have much of a chin, you know, shit hair, you know, all of those things where you sit there and you go, oh, that's wrong about me. That's wrong about me. Don't like that. Don't like that. And then I stepped away from it literally one day, and it wasn't too long ago. So it's taken me a long time to get there. And half of that was in this process of the things that I was seeing in Hollywood and the things that I was writing about, where I just went, hang on a second, who said Like, at what point did I listen to something or absorb some piece of information somewhere in my subconscious that I've been bombarded through on my Facebook feed because I accidentally looked up face cream, and now all the algorithms are just sending me everything, and I'm overloaded with now all of these other rabbit holes that I've gone down because, thought it was just my face, but no, now it's this cellulite thing. What's that? Or how do I do, and then you just create this whole world for yourself where everything's wrong with you. And I was just looking at face night cream, and now I've got to be looking at, body contouring and a whole bunch of other things that I wasn't intending to do, but that's my Sunday now. Great, thanks. You feel shit. And now you're in this perpetual state of wanting to fix everything. And it played on me, did that to me. I would go up in the morning and I would be like, in the mirror and sort of like, how do I fix this? Don't like this about me. Don't like my nose. Don't like this. And then I had my children, and I have 2 daughters, and they inherited my features. And I look at them and I'm like, they're beautiful. Objectively, I'm looking at them and I love it, and I love the smile, and I love the face, and I love everything about it. Who the fuck am I, excuse my French, to then want to change that about myself, to say that is now inherently a bad thing, something that needs to be fixed, rectified. When they've inherited it, they're going to look in the mirror with the same nose as mine, and I've changed mine. Like, what am I teaching them? And it was like this huge light bulb moment went up, and I was like, God, stop. Like, just stop. Like, even though I thought I was kind of immune to the barrage of this type of thinking, I wasn't, because I was doing it to myself until I made the connection that it was in my children. And therefore I have to love that. I've got to celebrate that. Otherwise, the damage I'm going to do to them ongoing, they're going to be in the same state of flux that I'm in and that every other woman is in. So now I'm just like, not today, Satan. I'll look in the mirror and I'll just be like, absolutely not today. Like, all good. And I'll go down to my girls, and I'm really trying to find that part of myself, that authentic part, that connected to my spirituality part, which is just like, this is the way that I was made. And you can go to hell with all of your attempts at trying to make me not feel authentic and not feel like I am good enough. It's not going to work. I'm going to push back. I'm going to say no. Yeah. And that has helped so much, because I think that's made me more comfortable, more interesting, less tied up in it, less wanting to give a shit about it. It's made me more connected with other women. Their stories really, especially with your story, Alexa, like we're on like a simpatico on that of how you feel when you make these decisions. And you can just see beauty in the world where you didn't see it before, where you only saw imperfection and competition. And they're the two most damaging things to women, is the pursuit of this ridiculous, preconceived perfection that, like I said, we don't even know who decided it, who made us believe it, number one, but we're now coming out of that. We're coming out of that idea that we have to be that. And once you remove yourself from even accepting that the narrative is true, you gain so much power. And you can still want to be healthy, and you can want to not put shit on your body, and you cannot want to ingest things that are bad for you. You not want to drink the water. You do all of these things for health and prosperity, and getting you out of that system and keeping you awake and not dulling you down and not dulling your senses and keeping you healthy. And for you, Alexa, like, you've removed your breast implants because they were causing you sickness. They were causing you hurt.
What you're saying is so important too, with like, especially for mothers with their children, because it's not just with daughters, but also with their sons. Because I've found, like in my experience, boys and men that have mothers that do work on themselves, whether it's Botox or facelifts or like whatever, because once you're kind of getting into those older ages, it's very common now for women. I'm just going to go get a facelift, and I'm going to get my boobs done. I've had my kids, now I'm going to get my boobs done. And when you're modeling that for your sons, that's then what they're more likely going to be drawn to and maybe even expect in their partners. But especially for daughters, because I definitely like had to reflect on that. you know, especially like deciding to take my breast implants out and why I got them in the first place. And because I also, when I had my breast surgery done, I also had my nose done. And my mum had her nose done about 10, 15 years ago. And again, this is all very subconscious. It's not like, oh, my mum got her nose done, I'm going to get my nose done too. It's not like on a conscious level. But for me, I was just like, well, yeah, my mum got her nose done at, you know, in her 40s or whatever it was. And I was like, well, I'm going to get my boobs done. I may as well get my nose done now, because what if I get to my 40s and want to get my nose done? I may as well just do it now.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, it's not, I obviously, it's a little bit different with that. I don't regret it as much, just because, again, like, it hasn't caused me massive health issues and it's not very noticeable. Like, I often actually get commented that, oh, you got a really nice nose. And my joke is like, oh, thanks, I paid good money for it. But yeah, but in saying that, I also now am like in the same boat as you, where I'm, you know, getting ready to have kids. And then I think, well, what if my kids have my nose? Like, I'm never going to tell them that they should, you know, fix their nose or change it in any way, shape or form. And I guess I'm glad that I did my surgeries when I did, because now where my headspace is at, I would never want to model that for my children, especially my daughters, where I'm constantly changing things about the way I look and things about my physicality. Because again, going back to the whole distraction thing, when you're focused on the physical, it takes away from you going deeper into yourself and actually having to look at yourself on a deeper level. Because when I look back on, you know, when I hated my boobs and wanted them done, and like always, I always looked at my nose in photos and sighed on like I didn't like my profile. And sometimes I'd sit and look at photos and be like, oh, I just want to change this and this, and my thighs, if my thighs were just like this. And I wasn't looking at myself on a deeper level. And at that time in my life, I was pretty fucking miserable. Like, I was really unhappy in my life and where I was at and the things that I was doing. I was partying a lot and drinking a lot and doing drugs and I was miserable. But when I was focused just on the physical, I didn't have to look at that stuff. And again, I think it's a tactic.
It's all intentional.
Absolutely.
So this is what I'm starting to learn in the research that I've done for work that I'm writing at the moment, is that it's intentional. It's intentional for especially women to be in this constant state of believing that we have not ascended spiritually. We are not good enough. We are searching, but we're searching for the wrong thing. We're searching for this, like you said, like you're in your 40s and you go, oh, just get a little facelift, a little bit of nip and tuck. Like, that shouldn't be the priority in your 40s. I'm not saying self-improvement is a bad thing. What I'm saying is that the normality behind completely restructuring the skin you're in, changing yourself, and believing that somehow that aesthetic change is going to fill some void inside of yourself, it's going to change you spiritually, is what they want you to believe. The more shallow you become, and I'm not saying shallow is a negative thing, because it's not our fault, because you're exposed to it in the sense that you have to constantly think about it. You've been pre-programmed to think about it. You have to alter yourself in order to be accepted. No, you don't have to. And it was only when I started to look at, not even just with my children being born and going, well, I'm not going to change it about myself because I love it in them and I want to not do that. I don't want to screw them up, right? That's primarily what you want to do as a parent. You just want to get through each day, minimal damage, minimal psychology required later on in life. Like, just try to do the best right thing as a parent every day. And you're not perfect, that's fine. But when we're getting to this point where all of our female energy is displaced into a physical aesthetic, and such a ridiculous one, and we are controlled by it every day. Like I said, if you accidentally Google something on your phone, the algorithms target you like, oh, insecurity, ding, 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 and it all comes in, and just like you can't fight it. After a period of time, it will wear you down, and it's daily, and unless you can step out of it, and like I said, what I'm learning, unless you can step out from that and go, not today, like, I know what you're doing. Same as in film, I know what you're doing. I now can see it, and I'm not buying into it. So delete, don't want to see any more of these posts, not doing it. And the minute that you start to do that, you start to assert some authority in being your authentic self. irrespective of what the hell the society is trying to tell you need to be doing in order to be a good woman and to mirror this standard. You start to realize you've got a lot to say and a lot of great energy and a lot of good projects come, and you start to put your energy like you're doing, like with this show, which is so great, and wanting to start a family, and your focus shifts into what is actually perfect for you. Has nothing to do with trying to spend all of your energy trying to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And it is, like I said, when we came up with the idea of this show, in terms of that this industry is worse, in my opinion, in some ways than Big Pharma, because Big Pharma, they obviously want you sick, they want to make money, misinformation, all of that, right? We know that. It's to sell product, it's to make you sick, it's to give you the wrong things, keep you there so that you're always going to spend, you're always going to need it, and they're always going to make billions of dollars, right? But the beauty industry, yes, it's all about money. They all want to make money, but they rely solely on a much deeper insecurity than health. It's like a physical, I'm not good enough. No one who's sick goes, I'm not good enough. They're just like, I'm sick, I need to take this pill, I need to fix it. It's not doing that much damage to your psyche to be in that space, but it is in the aesthetic side. Because when you don't feel like you're worthy and you don't know how to connect with your true self to have enough strength to discern that you shouldn't even be feeling like that because you are of God, you are a beautiful thing, this is how you're meant to be, all of your energy, all of your effort, all of your, uniqueness comes from that sense of self. If they destroy that in you and they do it for a long enough amount of time where you believe it, you literally believe that you need to change these things about yourself, you're never going to be okay, because it's going to be a constant thing. You'll do one thing, then you'll need to do another one, then you need to do another one. And it's never going to end. And that's what they want. And when I started to think, well, why do they want that? Why could they possibly want to destroy women's sense of self? You start to open up a ton of other rabbit holes, and some might be true that I've gone down, some probably aren't as well, that there's a reason behind it. The disempowerment of women is a central, purposeful thing that they are doing, and they are doing it in this disguised, cosmetic way. Because that's acceptable. No one is going to come after you if you're trying to spruik this or spruik that. It doesn't look like it's a bad thing. We're trying to help you with our new cellulite cream. No, you're not. You're trying to destroy my sense of self, because now you're telling me that what I'm looking at in the mirror, there is a problem with that. You're disempowering me.
And it's definitely disguised very heavily, especially these days, in the whole female empowerment movement. Like it's it's because like that agenda is all about women can do anything. If you want to fix something about yourself, you just go and you have that surgery and you buy that cream and you do you, boo. Like it's this whole
treat yourself.
Oh my, don't get me started. David talks about this all the time, this boss women bullshit. Like I have to be told. No, I don't have to be told. I know that I'm strong. I don't have to have some hashtag ridiculous statement label on it so that I can virtual signal to the rest of the women out there that I'm okay with myself. Me being okay with myself is probably being off Instagram completely, not following any of it. That's when you probably know I'm totally fine, is when I don't have a profile where I have to feel like I've got to put anything forward. And I feel really sorry for the way that young people, I'll say people, but it's mainly women, but young people are viewed as these narcissistic, taking 1,000 selfies to get the right one, putting filters over everything, and we're blaming them for it. And we're saying how wrong that is and how it's, degrading their sense of self. And we're saying all the right words publicly, but they're doing it because they feel like they have to. Because they don't even have enough confidence to post a normal photo of themselves up to show that they're with their family at a barbecue or they've gone to a great concert without filtering it and the angle and everything else, so that they almost are completely unrecognizable from the actual person that is having that experience is not the person that's even in that photo. They have separated you from your consciousness, from that moment that you're sharing, and you've shared it in a false way. And we're angry at them because you see them taking 500 photos to get one good one. They are so worried about the fact that it won't look good, that they'll get judged what the hell have we done?
Yeah.
It's not their fault. And narcissism is probably a byproduct of that. Like, you've created all these sort of narcissistic, fully focused people, but you've done it because you've basically destroyed their sense of self from such a young age. It's like actually terrifying. Like, who are these people going to become? Like, they're just not even going to be comfortable in their own bodies. And then they contort and they put these agendas behind it, and they contort it, and they put all this, and consent is a real thing. We all know people have to have consent, but they hijack the insecurity, and where the transgender movement's gone, they hijack all of this stuff. It all comes down to like insecurity and sense of self, in not being able to go, this is actually who I am, and F you for trying to force onto me these ideals. Like I said, where the hell did that aesthetic even come from, Alexa, that we have to look like that? To be honest, I actually don't want to. Do you want to? Do you want to like walk around looking like some weird filtered, Orange County housewife? Like, I don't actually get it. And then to you, Isaac, with men, are men really looking at, honestly, honest men that just want to have connection, a relationship and start a family with someone, looking at that and going, oh, damn, I wish my girlfriend looked really, really not real.
Yeah, it doesn't connect with reality. It doesn't connect with when you're actually in a relationship and you're like this close to someone talking, like at night. Sometimes we're laying in bed, we're just laughing, like just enjoying life. Never once am I thinking like, oh, like, I don't know, anything about her could be different. It's never even crosses my mind. You're just alive in that present moment with the person you're with, thinking about what they're saying, listening to their voice, like all these other things that you're filling in the full picture of who they are and what that experience is like.
And it's beauty in that moment, right? And there's like just honesty and beauty in that moment when you don't have to like have makeup on, and you can have a bun in your hair, and you can have your really comfortable clothes on at night, and you can feel totally present, totally not bound by anything, not having to pretend to be anything. And then you've got to wake up the next day and be inundated with society saying, no, don't be that. Don't be that. Don't be authentic and real and personable and connected. Be this. Be this fake version of yourself, because the fake version is acceptable. And so that's where I've gone with the deep dive, is why. Why are we being targeted in that way? Why are we being made to feel like we have to actually be almost like a completely fake version of ourselves? And it comes down to what you talk about, which is like that removal of sense of self, the destruction of knowing who you are.
That's powerful. Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Like, so the rabbit hole leads to that direction. Is there another, underbelly to it besides that? Or do you think that's the primary one, where they want you to be separate from your true self?
I think in doing it to women first, targeting women first, this is just my opinion. You'll probably get comments on this and people go, that's bullshit. But my opinion is that you target the woman first, because inadvertently, if you make a whole bunch of insecure women that don't know who they are, don't know what they're looking for, they shirk traditional roles, they're not interested in being who they really are meant to be, then inadvertently you'll change all the men. So they'll go after the women to change the men. And that's sort of where I'm thinking it kind of is going. So, you're damaging the way that men view women. You're damaging the way that women view themselves, but you're doing it by targeting the woman first.
Yeah.
So it's not even men's fault, I don't believe.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with that, because, again, that stream that we were listening to just last night, they were talking more about like symbolically some things in nature that like, they were talking about how they used to sort of use a lot of bear symbology, and how the bear really represents like the women look after the cub, the female bears look after the cubs, and the men go out and hunt and do, like, that's more of that traditional role. But then they moved more towards like the lion symbology, which is more how the women go out and hunt for the men, and the men kind of sleep around sleep around with all the women and just get them pregnant, and it's really interesting, because I was like, and then I was like thinking back to like when you look back in history at like, so the rise of the feminist movement, it obviously started in the 60s, and then we've kind of gone into what I call like new age feminism. you can literally see that with that rise in feminism, and we all know what the agenda is behind that. There's multiple agendas, but it's, again, disconnecting the women from who they are really meant to be. And then in that, we've seen this hyper feminization of society as a whole, and men, because then women are now doing what men do, going out and working and having a career and like not raising their children, and their children are being raised, you know, in daycare and then into school and these indoctrination camps, because that's all they are. And the men are losing their power, or, you know, I guess giving it away in a sense, because I believe, and again, this is just my opinion, I believe that for a man to provide and protect for his family, like that gives him, and I know because Isaac has said this before, like if he's not doing that, he feels like he's not like living in his purpose. He feels like he's not being a man. He's not being of service. He's not, like, I'm just like paraphrasing here, like, but
that's the same as Dave. Like that's his overview. That's his job. And we discussed this in the car just before I was going to have this conversation with you, where if you make women who are more emotional, let's be honest, that's not an anti-feminist thing to say. We are more emotional. Men are generally in a union a little bit more level-headed, and their job is to control that, to realize when we're overstimulated, overwhelmed, and to provide the balance and the calm on top of that, so that we can then get through it. They're supposed to be there as the rock. They're supposed to be there to, one, acknowledge that it's happening, not be disrespectful in the way that they conduct themselves to address that issue, but to also provide the balance and the calm. If you've got a man that's also highly emotional, going, I can't deal with you right now, and I've just got, where the hell do we go as women? Because we're looking for that bit of saving, that little bit of, I'm going to get grilled for saying the word saving, but we are looking for that contrast in whatever emotional thing we're going through to bring that balance back, that yin and that yang, that balance needs to be there. If we are just pummeled with all of this other stuff that we've got to now be worried about, I can't go because look at how I look, and I can't wear this, and I look terrible, and then the man's like, oh my God, what do I do? Because it's all the time, and there's so much emotional turmoil going on, and then we can't get that from our men, and the men are like reactive, and they're not able to be the balance and the calm. You're destroying everything that we're supposed to be doing together as a union. They're destroying that whole balance. And they target, it's not just one way of being targeted either. They're being targeted on every single level to try to imply that that type of relationship is not right, it's antiquated, it's 50s, it's not healthy, women should be able to do anything. Women can do whatever the fuck they want. No one's stopping you from doing what you want to do. In our Western sort of society, you have access to everything. You can do everything. If you want to be a CEO, you can go do it. It's not wrong, right? Whatever your heart desire is, go do it. But there still needs to be balance. In order for that to work effectively, the balance has to be there. And they're trying to imply by deteriorating it, coming at us with all of these things, destroying it, that they don't want us to actually be looking at it from a perspective of stepping out and going, hang on a second, this should be working. Like on paper, these things should be working in my life. I should be comfortable here. It's not working. Why is it not working? Step out and go, oh, that's why, because I'm being absolutely inundated with all of this negativity and self-loathing and self-hating, and then I'm taking it out on my partner who now can't deal with all of my emotional stuff, can't provide the balance. And then inadvertently what's happening to men is that, the feminizing of men and their inability to be protectors, to be providers, to look at a situation and sort of control, and to not control in a negative way, control the balance, keep the calm there. It's just disintegrating everything. And they're just coming at us. And it's absolutely the same thing with film. Like once you see it happening and you know that it's happening, you can take the reins back and the steps and go, no, I'm not going to buy into that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be the result of someone else's agenda. I'm going to be my authentic self. And if that means that I'm going to cop criticism for saying this or doing this or behaving this way or purely being comfortable with my traditional role or whatever it is, and I'm going to cop flack for that, I'm going to lose friends for that if I don't want to do this, and I don't want to take an experimental vaccine, or I don't want to drink the water, and I'm going to lose people, I'm going to lose them. because at some point your tribe that you will find, the authentic self that you will find, will be exactly what you need. And people are too worried about disappointing some imaginary society, like someone else's view of us. I don't care anymore. I'll disappoint you. I don't care, because I would rather disappoint some magical, mythical thing than disappoint myself or what God intended for me or my partner or my children. So I'm just going to say whatever it is that I want to say now, when before I was very much like, just no, I'll just play the game. I'll just be really MK Ultra, what is that? Is that bad? And I'll just pretend like I don't know. We're doing this. Okay, we're going to film it that way to do something seems legitimate. But now I'm just like, I'm terrified of it. I'm terrified about doing anything now where I'm contributing to a piece of myself being taken away.
Yeah.
I don't dye my hair no more. So get used to the grays coming through.
I love it.
Well, there's so many different things I want to say, but it's like we could take hours and hours and unwrap this.
So many.
But I remember I was learning about Edward Bernays. They did something called he had a book or a small pamphlet called Crystallizing Consent. And I read that and I was just like, holy smokes, like that was back in the 20s, 30s, something like that.
Yeah.
And there was also these stories about him, how they wanted to sell more cigarettes. They want to sell them to women. So they started the whole freedom torches or whatever thing to get women to think it was like empowering to smoke cigarettes. And it seemed always around money. And you probably have more insights into what it was really about. But they did the same thing with the workforce when they wanted women out of the home and into the workforce, supposedly to get more taxation out of more of the population. They've done that with the female empowerment movement, like you mentioned, from just anything like the presidency and all these other things. But it's always doing the opposite of what they're claiming to do. It's like if you're out of the house,
it's not empowerment at all. It's the absolute opposite of empowering women to place this much pressure on us and these many expectations. And then in doing that, also not providing us with the types of men that would even be able to physically cope with the amount of pressure that would put on most women. Yeah. And it's designed intentionally. Like, of course they don't want us strong. Of course, they've gone after men for so long. I think they're now really, really pushing going after women. Because
I think they figured out what you said. Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, they get a result with manipulating and leading the women. In a traditional society, like we think of it as like, well, men lead the women. But I mean, have you ever, as a man, ever tried to like get a woman really to do something that she doesn't want to do, or try to argue with her on that? Like it's formidable. Women are powerful. There's never been, I don't think it really has ever been, like any real disagreement with that. Like a lot of, if the story of Troy is any lesson, if that was real, and I think it might have been, men will die because one woman went to this guy's house and like stayed there. So women
are powerful if we're given the platform to be ourselves.
Yeah,
if we're not,
and it's influence.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. And it's influence. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And your influence, when it's not distracted, when it's not parasitically leached away from you, like you can do so much good for the world, good for your family, good for yourself. When you're really empowered, you're really in touch with who you are. And all these things that we've talked about are all money sucks, time sucks, like energy sucks in so many different ways.
And I think it's what the perception of power is. Like in this modern world, people perceive power as like being a CEO of a company or like having lots of money or like all these really superficial things. But like now the way that I see women as being really powerful is when they are fully embodying their feminine energy and the feminine qualities that make us women. Like yes, we're more emotional, but it's actually like we can also be more emotionally intelligent, and that is a gift. And it's something we have to teach our children. Our psychic abilities. Like when I meet women that are like fully in tune, like spiritually, and they have these psychic abilities. And when I use that term very broadly, just for anyone listening, I don't mean like people that see into the future or people like, I'm talking like people that are tapped in spiritually, that have these crazy experiences and they can see into other realms and whatever. Like that is, to me, that's powerful. That's the power. Like that's what we need to be embodying, not these superficial ideals of what power is on the outside. And that's what I think the inversion is of the feminist movement.
Oh, 100%. But power is also recognizing that they're fucking with you. That's the biggest power you've got.
Yeah.
Is in the recognition of it.
Yeah.
And the ability to pivot and go, yeah, I may have been indoctrinated for X amount of time. This may have worked on me. And like I said, it worked on me. It's worked on you in the sense as well of like going and doing a medical procedure that's caused you harm in the pursuit of something that you weren't even aware of what that pursuit was. But the real power comes in when you realize what they're doing and being able to say, I will either completely remove myself from the effect of that by not engaging in any of it, right? That's massively isolating. No one can really do that, okay? So that's really taking yourself out of the system and connection and not being exposed to anything, no TV, no Instagram, no nothing, right? So if you really want to remove yourself, I don't think most people can realistically do that. But if you realize what the intention is, and the intention's not good, but it's not for me to say that that's a fear-based thing. The intention's not good. We all know that. The three of us in this conversation know that their intention is a negative one. It is to do damage and destruction, and whether it's damage and destruction on a lineage, throughout you, then your children, then their children's children, and it just sort of, siphons down into generational issues. They are trying to create damage, disconnect, and destruction, disguised as help and improvement. So the biggest power you have as a woman, as a man, as someone that can recognize it, go, I'm not going to let you do it. You can expose it to me. I can see it and absorb it, but I can check it and I can go, that's not going to happen today. I'm not going to view myself that way just because you're telling me that I have to. I'm not going to change that about myself because you're telling me that I should. Because inherently that to me feels like my authentic self, and therefore I'm going to stand on that hill. That hill I will die on. That's fine. I'm okay with it. And the power then doesn't exist. They don't have power over you if you choose not to believe them. And the beauty industry has so much power unless we tell them that they don't.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like they never have power over us. We give our power to them, and that's when that shift happens. I totally lost my train of thought now. I was about to add something, but I've
I think that's why I think that's why your show is so important, because you're telling people to find that in themselves, that being who you authentically are is the most important thing. And you can have all different shows that talk about that same thing, but that's great. And as much as I don't believe in predictive programming, perhaps predictive programming needs to happen with a positive message so that people suddenly start going, oh, shit, like I am that. I resonate with that. I believe in that.
Well,
it's really important.
That's actually you just reminded me now what I was going to say about how where I'm at now, I always take when things like this come up, whether it's whether it's you're trying to meet these beauty standards and it's just making you miserable, or you're just trying to reach this idea of perfection that doesn't exist. Whether it's whether it's something emotional coming up, whether it's a childhood trauma that's triggered, I just take all of those things now as opportunities for growth. And I think that's really one of the things that we talk about a lot on this show as well, is that to get back to who we really are, we have to take down all these layers of conditioning. We need to reprogram ourselves because we have received so much programming from, like you said, from every different angle for our whole lives. Yeah. And I think this is another really good opportunity for people to really get to know themselves on a deeper level. So to look at, whatever it is that, whether it's whether you've had cosmetic surgery, whether you spend thousands of dollars on cosmetic procedures and creams and all the things, whatever it may be, looking at why. Like, why? Because like you said, there's almost always a much, much deeper insecurity underneath all of that. And unfortunately too, it's some people, it's not that obvious to see. Like, I was like that. I thought that I was really confident in myself, and I was like, I never got my boobs done because I was insecure. I just didn't like the look of them, and that's all it was. But when I actually when I then decided to take them out years later and had to look at why I got them in the first place, I actually hated my body. I used to say that. I hate my boobs. I used to speak to myself like that. That's not healthy. It might not have stemmed from insecurity with men or insecurity in relationships or anything like that, but there was a self-loathing. There was a self-hatred. So there's always something underneath that we don't want to look at. And then we do these things to try and make ourselves feel better on the outside. But, 10 years later, that was still there. And I had to deal with that, unfortunately, when I then had to go through one of the most major surgeries of my life. But that was my journey. And I think that's why, again, this is so dear to my heart, because I would never, what I've gone through just with my journey with like getting breast implants and then having to remove them, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And if I could ever prevent that, like a woman like going through that and then having to go through getting them out, I would always want to do that, because it's not a nice thing to go through. And I think if you can just nip it in the bud, like if you're wanting to go through a major procedure like that, but then actually taking a step back and going, well, why do I really want to do that? And looking at those.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Like, it's like there's this underlying insecurity that a lot of people don't know they've actually got, number one. So there's two things on that I honestly believe is that's why this industry is so clever as well, is because they know that probably everyone, because we're indoctrinated and we've been pre-programmed and brainwashed to believe that we have insecurities. Even if we don't, we've been pre-programmed to believe that we do. But we don't actually identify what that insecurity is. So then if somebody's like really good at their advertising and they're really good at their programming and they're flushing you with it all the time, you're going to go, oh, maybe that's my insecurity. It's my nose. But it may not have been before that. Maybe it's the cellulite. That's got to be it. So then you focus on that. So they're very clever at creating an insecurity that you don't actually necessarily have. You just know there's something there, and that's got to be it. So, and it's got to be that, and then it's this, and then it's that. And every single step takes you further and further away, because every single thing is more hatred, more self-loathing, more body image and dysmorphia. But then if you actually do identify what that insecurity is, my advice to anybody and my own personal experience and like yours is, okay, identify what that is, but flip it, be powerful, turn it into something else. Take it from an insecurity to either a blessing or a lesson or something else. Look at it for its beauty, because the insecurity that you do honestly believe that you have, if you have identified that it's there, it's not beautiful. Like, so you've got to go, I'm going to flip the script on that feeling.
Yeah.
And if you do the work, and that's what they don't want us to do, which is the authentic work, the work on yourself, the identifying who you're really meant to be, that will no longer present as an insecurity, because you will just become so much more muchy, and everything else in your life will kind of fall into place, because you're not held back by this subconscious potential problem that you have with yourself that you shouldn't actually even have, and probably isn't a problem. And the more that I'm learning is that one thing that they don't want you to fix or don't want you to find or don't want you to really address is probably the thing that's going to like really propel you forward. It's probably the thing that you're meant to be here for. It's the challenge you're meant to have. And sometimes our way of getting to that is harder, and we make mistakes along the way, and we do all of these other things to get there, but we do eventually get there.
Yeah. Well, that's like the things that are like the hardest for us to deal with often or work through often are, they do turn into the gifts we have to offer other people. Like, 100%. Whenever I listen to anyone that's like an expert in their field, or, they've got these amazing experiences doing all this inner work and now they help people, it's like they all went through their own dark night of the soul. They all went through some kind of like really, and it doesn't even have to be extreme, but like they went through some really hard shit. Yeah. And I think that's where our power actually lies. It's in overcoming those things. It's in growing through them, because where I'm at now, and it's wild, because it's taken me, multiple surgeries, a lot of inner work, but I'm now 33, and for the first time in my life, really, I think for the first time in my life, I'm finally at a point where I am fully comfortable in my body, in who I am. I know I'm not perfect. Like, I love myself, warts and all. And I am so grateful. Like, it's been really hard what I've been through, especially in the last year, but because not only like going through the surgery, but like getting really unwell. Like, I had to get really fucking sick to realize that I was poisoning my body with having my breast implants in, and then going through the surgery and the recovery. So it's been really tough, but I'm actually so grateful for the experience, because I'm finally at a point where I look at myself in the mirror and look at photos. Now I look at photos and I look at them now, and there's nothing that I would pick apart. Like, I know I've got a few extra kilos on me at the moment. I know I could there's things I could improve on health wise, because again, I'm all for like being fit and healthy. Like, for me now, when I'm like, I need to lose weight, it's because I feel unfit. It's not because I need to look better. That used to always be my motivation before. I need to be thinner. Whereas now I'm just like, I just feel really unfit. I need to lose a bit of weight and get healthy. But it's like just being comfortable in my body and who I am. And that's such a beautiful feeling. Like, I've literally never felt that before in my life. And I'm so glad that I feel that way now, like before having my children, because again, the way that
you'll go in with the best energy. Like, I wish that I had that type of feeling that I have now, but 9 years ago when I had my first daughter, because I think I would have done things way differently. Like, I had elective seizures on all three of my children, which I massively fucking regret. I went back to work a week and a half, 2 weeks later on the first two.
Oh, wow.
No recovery of any description, focus solely on, making the businesses work, doing all of those things. So much massive regret, so much hormone overload, like everything, but in hindsight, you'd make better decisions, So I just want to say, like, the thing that you hate most about yourself, or the imperfection that you think most people think they have, that they're not smart enough, or they're not entrepreneurial enough, or their business isn't going fast enough, they must be making a mistake. It's probably the best thing about you, that thing that you're constantly subconsciously thinking about. There's a reason that it's there. There's a reason that you need to be thinking about it. It's probably the best thing about you, that imperfection. So I'm about with the girls at the moment, and my son, it's like their imperfection being perfect. That's the thing to get right with. And I think if you get right with that and you realize why you've got that in the first place, you can be this exponentially better person.
I think that's right on the target. That's such a powerful way to enter the world and to grow up being taught that. And I believe, we'll see when time continues on, but it's like, I think if you nail that, if you really look at your imperfections, and you can sit with them, because this is what I'm doing now, where there's anything that I need to fix or whatever, I can sit with it and see it and not be ashamed of it, not look away, not be afraid, not feel like I have to change it. But just look at it and be like, this is me, and I can still love me. I think you're helping your girls, your kids become impervious, rhino tough to the outside world trying to exploit that and get their hooks in.
Because it is 24/7, 7 days a week, just bad juju all over your authentic self from every angle.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do another talk where I can go fully into how they're doing this and
we'd love to have that.
Examples in film where they're doing it, and once you see it, you'll just be like, oh my God, I cannot believe I didn't see it before. But it is just this massive assault on your soul, on who you're authentically meant to be. And just unfortunately for women, not saying it's not men, I'm sure there's a beauty standard and a beauty industry that's targeted you. It's just that, I don't have the penis, so I don't see it.
Yeah. Mine's apparently Ben Affleck. So.
We say he's like the Mexican version of Ben Affleck.
But like for women, it's there to destroy you. Like, just move away, exit stage left. Like, it's there to destroy you. It is not there to help you. Like, if they're saying that there's something wrong with you, that you need this to better yourself, like, step away from it. You absolutely don't. The key is to recognize it, be discerning about that, and go, not today. You're not going to get to me today. And if you have to say that every single day until you can just do that, then do it, because it is really powerful to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, not today. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to feel shit about myself today. You're not going to win. You're not going to get to me. I'm not then going to transfer that into my behaviors today. I'm not going to be jealous and competitive with other women because I've woken up feeling terrible about myself because the first thing I scrolled on was all of this shit that I don't meet a standard for. And then I've blown up at my husband over coffee in the morning because XYZ, I already feel shit about myself. They've subconsciously already gotten to me with this already before I'm even attuned with myself and the world. Like, so I do it. I'm just like, not today. And if I have to keep doing it, not tonight. I'm just going to put on a movie. You're not going to get to me tonight. I'm going to enjoy this for what it is, but you're not going to, I'm like out loud sometimes saying it. Like you're not going to infiltrate who I'm meant to be with this bullshit.
Yeah. And that's so powerful too, like saying things out aloud. Like because that's another way that they get us to give our power away. It's through the things that we say. Our word is so powerful.
And what we don't say.
Yeah.
You're giving this tacit agreement, like you're agreeing to the perception of whatever they've manifested for you or what they want you to believe. It's in what you don't say half the time. Like, do not give control to it. Like, look in the mirror, be beautiful, be okay with that. Like what Isaac said before, so important. Like, be at one with and in face to face with, accepting of whatever that little, imperfection is, or that little doubt that you've got. Like, be okay with that. That's also sometimes intuition as well. It's like, oh, there's a reason I've got to focus on that. But it's normally for a really powerful reason.
Yeah.
But we're so conditioned to push it all aside and not believe that, we've got all of this predestined greatness in us. Because we're overloaded with all of the things that we're not, and all the things that we're doing wrong, and all the ways that we're not contributing correctly. And I am just sort of at that point in my life now where, one, don't have the time, but I don't have the energy for it. You've basically taken all my energy in the first 45 years. Like, I've got very little left for that. So what I do have it's got to come from a good place. It's got to be speaking power. It's got to be positive. It's got to be addressing these issues. And I was really unsure about to come out about it, because some of the things that maybe in future ones we'll discuss are very career ending for me. So there's that thing of like, okay, do I tell the truth of what I actually really know about the Illuminati and how they pay actors, and that stuff is real and these things happen, or do I not say anything and just keep the status quo and just and I'm sort of at the point now where I'm like, no, like, truth and power and correct energy and helping people to, not make the same mistakes that I've made. You're trying to do that too, Alexa, where you're trying to, tell your stories so other people have, the script to be able to deal with. If they're in the same position of you, they can go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to play that. I'm going to hear that again. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to really absorb that. I'm going to consider this, for myself. And your reason is probably that you've gone through all of that pain and suffering and hurt and being unwell, so that you can tell that story, so that you can help people. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where although a lot of the stuff is career ending, if it was to get out, I kind of think I need to. Because then I'm not being authentic. Then I'm keeping these massive secrets, and, how good is that going to be for me?
Yeah. Good on you, Erin. And I'm so thank you so much for coming on and talking about this stuff, because I think it's such a beautiful example too. Like, it's never too late. Like, this is another thing that I really want to remind people. Like, it's never too late to start doing something different. You know what I mean? It's never too late to make a change. Like, I think some people get to a point in their life, like whether it's their 40s or their 50s or their 60s, and they just think like, oh, it's too late for me. Like, I can't change anything. And they resign to this life that they don't like, or there's these things about themselves that they think like, oh, well, I'm just going to have to live with it. And it's never, ever too late. Like, you can always make a change, and it's always going to have a positive impact. Like, and wouldn't you rather, like, how often do you hear these stories of people like that are like on their deathbed and having so many regrets? And that's what they say. They're just like, I wish I just did something different earlier. instead of getting to that point.
The change isn't necessarily like, you know, not being too late to make a change. It's like, it's actually recognizing that you never really needed to make that one anyway. Like if it's a physical thing, it's just accepting that all this time spent thinking that that was a thing that held you back for however long, for whatever reason, was something that you actually, one, could learn to accept about yourself, but that you could actually learn to embrace it. Because the power comes from not just accepting it and being like, I suppose I'm okay with having thin hair for the rest of my life. That's fine. It's actually going, no, like it's finding the place for that to be okay for you, but then actually embracing it.
Yeah.
Actually being totally fine with it. Actually not thinking about it ever again in a negative way is when you know you're okay with something. It's like, I don't think I've thought about my nose or my chin for like a month. So
right.
That's great.
Amazing.
You know, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about being like, you know, 600 pounds and being like, I'm okay with it. That's the, like we mentioned earlier, that's like the perversion of it.
That is bullshit. That is just outrageous. I can't.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I
That'll
studied.
be in part 3 of the.
Yeah. I mean, I studied as a nutritionist, and I remember talking about this during the time that I was at uni, and I get really riled up by it because I'm like, I'm not even going to call them plus size models. I'm going to call them morbidly obese models because that's what they are. That is not in any way, shape or form something that we should be modeling for anyone because it's not healthy. It's not about like, I'm all for, like the Best and Less catalog. They've got like size 12, size 14 women. That's fine. That's great. That's as long as they're healthy. I'm just like, as long as you're healthy. But these like new plus size, like obese models that are like hundreds of kilos and like grossly overweight, like that is not healthy. One of them actually died. I don't know her name, but one of them actually died. And I'm just like, if that doesn't tell you that this is not right, like I'm the same. I get really fired up because I'm just like, it's beyond ridiculous now. Like it's actually ridiculous.
My thing on it, why I'm so angry at it, isn't that I'm disappointed that somebody that looks like that is, powerful in themselves and has a great sense of self. Because that's what I try to promote as well. Like find the thing in yourself that you can be okay with and don't let it get you down, right? To the point where you're not your true authentic self. That's not the issue. It's the fact that the orchestrated agenda behind it isn't to support these women and their body positivity and their sense of self and their being who they authentically are. It's to completely corrupt it. And it's to use them. They're being used. That's what I hate about it, is that it's not
like weaponization.
It is. It's not there for a good reason. We're not learning anything out of it. You're coding it in all of this other stuff when realistically all you're doing is, one, objectifying them and two, using them. Like it's not even real. The what they're promoting is not real because the agenda behind it is fueled by just complete nonsense.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I'm just like, that's not aspirational.
Yeah.
But pat on your back for feeling good about yourself. But I'm pretty sure when the camera's not on you and you're not saying these things into the camera, you don't feel good about yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's my whole thing.
Mental maybe, and I'm glad about the mental side of that. But from the physical side, you're not going to bed at night feeling, like you're winning at life in a healthy way.
Yeah, it just froze again for a second, but we were like, thought we'd lost you, but you're here. Well, thanks so much, Erin. I'm so excited to release this episode because I think a lot of people need to hear it. And I think we'll definitely do a future episode because I think, we touched on this, like it's so important to be aware of this stuff so that it's not impacting you on a subconscious level where you're just taking it in because especially like it's not just the things that you're watching on film and TV, but on social media, like even just the ads that come up on your feed on social media. Like ever since I did my presentation on breast implant illness and explanting, I always get ads now, which I find really horrendous. Ads for cosmetic surgery. They're like all over Instagram now where
before you do one thing and then the algorithm just inundates you. It's like, it just is like I said, it goes, insecurity, target it. Like you're going to get a result on this person who's Googling this. And so it's just horrific. It's horrific. I can't express enough how dangerous it is. and how we all collectively need to start saying, like, no, parameters around this. Stuff that you can and can't say. Like, why are you doing this? And then there needs to be, because you'll never stop it. You'll never change it. You're never going to stop the advertising on it. The beast is massive, right? The money is huge. They're never going to stop doing it. Their agenda is pretty solid. They've been doing it forever. It's like, okay, how much other content can we put out there to try to even the playing field?
Yeah.
So that a 13-year-old girl, might get exposed to that. A 25-year-old woman, a 45-year-old, they're going to be exposed to it. But what else can they click on now? What else can they watch that might just negate it? Because it's energy versus energy. It's like a war at the moment on this.
Yeah.
For our authentic position in life and who we authentically are.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to quickly ask you before we wrap up, do you see any potential for change in like your industry? Do you think that, or do you just see it as, well, kind of like what you said, like they're going to exist, but we need to create something new to kind of counteract it?
Not specifically. Like I can see a way where there would be more content that would come out with more truth behind it. Obviously, as you see the rise of other networks like Tucker Carlson's network, and there's more stuff coming out there. But again, I'm sort of at the position where I'm like, it's just the same beast with a different hat on, right? Like you just never really know. I think it's all going to come down to this type of thing, these types of shows. It's like you've just got to fight fire with fire. So you're never going to stop it. It might improve in some way, legislatively, what you can and can't say, how much someone can be exposed to certain negative stuff. But overall, no. I mean, movies have been doing this forever. The industry's been doing it forever. They're not going to stop making film. They're certainly not going to cut the budget of the subliminal messaging and things out of film. And especially probably now it's probably going to get worse. I've got someone on the inside who said that they've got budgets in there that they weren't seeing in, 2020 and 2021. For this particular thing, because more people are waking up, so more efforts need to be made to fight and combat that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So no, you just got to keep doing your thing, guys, and just like put your work out there and get people on there to say the things that people aren't generally going to say, and hope that it can get out to enough people. And then, like I said, someone that is in a position where they're bombarded with this has an alternative where they can also click on this, and something that more authentically resonates with providing a solution that doesn't mean they have to go out and cut themselves up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, we're with you. We're glad we got you on our side. And
thank you. Oh, and I'm releasing a series on LFM, which Alexa's going to be on as well, which will be talking about all of these issues for women. So it's going to be pretty amazing. Can't wait to have you on there. So, changing the game a little bit, just, one podcast at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so
we are the rebel
needed.
Force.
Yeah, yeah, we are. This is so needed right now, and people like you, and I love you. You're just such a powerhouse, and I think this. I'm actually so excited for the series because I think it's just going to be really empowering, and I think it's also important that men start doing things together. I think this is another thing where we've really been taken away from, women doing, like it's been in the traditional and ancient cultures forever. Like women do secret women's business and men do secret men's business. But in this day and age, it's like, it's all like, but equality, we can't be separate. It's all about equality. And it's like, no, there are things that are sacred to women and that women should discuss together. And the same goes for men. So I absolutely love that you're doing this.
And how did your men's retreat go, Isaac? And speaking of that, like getting men together, how did it go?
Yeah, the men's group was awesome. We had a small private group up there with our friend Billy, and we discussed some really powerful stuff. And a big part of it was similar, like an adjacent topic about coming back to yourself, about authenticity, who you really are, how to decondition, and being aware of certain conditioning. So, there's a movement happening around this whole energy and this idea about that. It's a lot of good things brewing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Erin. We love you, and we will definitely get you on again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, if I don't get fired from my new job for saying
All right.
Love Erin, love everything that they're doing with the Living Free movement, and love that she was brave enough to come on here and share her story, share the inside knowledge that she's got that just validates, I think, what a lot of people already know.
Yeah.
I feel like my mom growing up, she protected us a lot from stuff, but she didn't even know it. But yeah, they were trying to program us the whole time.
I am so grateful to my parents that they were actually quite like all of those teen movies. I was never allowed to watch those things as at the age that most people, like most kids were.
Yep.
And I still think I look back on some of those quote unquote teen movies and they're so inappropriate for kids of any age.
Yeah.
And so we weren't allowed to watch that. But then, of course, there's so much even in Disney movies and like kids stuff. So the programming really does run deep. So having an awareness around it, especially when you have kids and you're raising them just have the awareness around it, be more conscious around it. Because I do know families that will let their kids watch some movies, but they'll either just not let them watch certain parts of the movie, or they'll actually, if they're old enough to be able to comprehend and have more open conversations about it, they'll actually bring up some of the things and actually explain to them that they do this to make you think a certain way, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So forewarned is forearmed, and you're responsible until the point that they're old enough to make their own decisions. Take charge and, monitor what your kids are watching. Don't just hand them an iPad and put them off in the corner with a stack of Oreos and expect them not to come out trans.
That's actually not even a joke.
Yeah. It's shocking to say, but actually it's just, this unfortunately is the reality that we're wading through right now.
Yeah. And I didn't even plan this, but I did shower earlier today and wash my hair and just let it dry naturally. And I really couldn't be bothered to do it. And then I was like, what a great episode to just be free with my fluffy, undone hair on this episode, because this is really what it's all about. It's about loving who you are, being comfortable in your body, warts and all. Like I said this in the episode, I'm not perfect. No one is. I don't think there is such thing as perfection other than what I would call divine perfection in the way that we're created and the way that the world has been created and nature and all of that. But like other than that, you can't be perfect in the way that you look, in the way that you behave, in the way that you live your life. It's not going to be perfect 100% of the time, maybe ever. And that's what you need to learn to love. So again, just another little plug for the Living Free movement, because they do have an amazing promotion on offer until March 30. So the end of this month, if you become a member, you'll go in the draw to win 2 tickets to the Living Free Festival this year, as well as a seat at the dinner with the guest speakers, which is freaking awesome.
Great deal. Doesn't include airfare, but if you're in Australia and you're, would like to come hang out with a group of legendary folks, camp out on this amazing property in the Pillar Valley, it is such a great hangout. The energy is so high vibe, literally transformational.
Well, we literally restarted the podcast together after the festival. There was definitely like a frequency shift that happened at that festival. Yeah. So many people we've spoken to felt the same thing.
And events really do change lives. And if you're needing some extra wind in your sails, come get around some people that are like-minded, learn these very empowering things that we're talking about in person with amazing practitioners and thought leaders, and have some fun with the music and dance, and it's family friendly. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean that's what the Living Free movement is all about. That's the Living Free Festival is just an extension of that, because that's what you get on the platform anyway. Like I would say most of our friends now we've met through the Living Free community, and they're just the most awesome people, and there's no judgment. Everyone's at different levels. Everyone's got different interests. But there's just such a huge library of content on the platform. There's so much to learn. There's so many amazing people to meet. Like Erin mentioned, they've now just launched a women's series, which we had the first episode last week.
I wasn't allowed to go to that or hear that.
It's actually funny. I think we saw a couple of guys jump on in the middle of it, and
they're like, "Oh, pardon me, I'll just be leaving."
Yeah, I don't think I actually don't know if they stayed on. They probably didn't, but it was pretty funny because we were like, "Do we kick them out?" But it's just designed to focus on topics that really affect women and provide solutions.
I got to say this real quick, though. That was very inspiring. The little bit that I did hear, Erin is on the same path that we're on. She's all about very much empowering, but also self-responsibility, not kicking it off and just bitching about men and like, what are they even here for? It's like women need to do a better job. Men need to do a better job. And we're all on this path together, improving ourselves and lifting up and making a better world by being better people.
Yeah, exactly.
Not making a better world by shaming everyone into, buying carbon credits for their electric vehicle.
Exactly.
Like, this is actual change, actual stuff that's going to change the world. And it's fun and there's cool people involved. So come on board. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We've got another amazing lineup of interviews and guests to come. We've got like the next 3 months booked out, and I'm so excited to get back into interviews and start releasing the episodes in real time because we had so many pre-recorded. So our next episode is going to be our very good friends from Mayoko Embodied, which people may or may not know. They're a tallow skincare company run by another couple, Jimmy and Kate, and we actually met them at the Living Free Festival for the first time. We coined the term business besties because we just couldn't stop talking to them when we first met them. Hey, and then when they left, they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to." We're like, "You should totally move up here," and they're like, "Yeah, we're thinking about it." And then like a couple months later, they literally had moved up to Yamba, which is only a couple of hours away from us, and we just love them. They've got an amazing story to share about how they met and their business, Mayoko, and they're just really awesome human beings. So excited to have them
They're
on.
Amazing, fully awake, conscious couple.
Oh,
and they've got, great sense of humor. It's a joy to talk to them, and we're going to have a hilarious chat, I'm sure.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
Informative, fun. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao. Be sure to check the show notes for links and resources mentioned in this episode. If you found value in this show and want to help us reach more people with life-changing insights, head to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment on your favorite episodes. And until next time, live every day with purpose and keep it natural AF.